The signal traveled through the empty darkness of space for 17 days before anyone heard it. It moved at the speed of light, passing dead moons and burning stars, and the cold graves of civilizations that had died long before any living creature could remember them. The signal was simple. It was desperate. It was a cry for help that most of the galaxy would ignore. But not everyone ignored it. On the far side of the Milky Way, in a region of space that most species considered too dangerous to visit, a small blue planet orbited a yellow sun. The planet was called Earth by the creatures who lived on it. The rest of the galaxy called it something else. They called it the nightmare. They called it the place where death itself had learned to walk and talk and build starships. The signal reached Earth on a Tuesday morning local time. It was received by a massive array of radio telescopes in a desert region called New Mexico. The scientists who worked there did not understand the signal at first. It was not in any human language. It was not in any code they recognized. But there was something about it that made them feel cold inside. Something that made them understand, even before they translated it, that someone far away was very afraid. They sent the signal to the United Earth Government headquarters in Geneva. From there, it went to the military. From there, it went to the people who made decisions about such things. And within 6 hours of its arrival on Earth, the signal had changed everything. Admiral Wells stood in the command center of Earth Defense Command and listened to the translation for the third time. She was 52 years old, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She had served in the Earth Defense Force for 30 years. She had fought pirates in the asteroid belt and rebels on Mars and hostile aliens in 3 separate conflicts. She thought she had seen everything the universe could throw at her. She was wrong. The translated message played through the speakers in the command center. The voice was artificial, generated by computers that had converted alien sounds into human words. But the fear in that voice was real. The desperation was real. The plea for help was real. "This is the Broadcasting Emergency Beacon 7. We are under attack. The devouring swarm has entered our system. Our defenses have failed. Our fleet has been destroyed. We estimate 3 billion of our people remain on the surface. We have no means of evacuation. We have no means of defense. We are sending this message to all civilized species in range. Please, if anyone can hear us, please help us. We do not want to die." The message repeated. It had been repeating for 17 days, traveling through space, begging for someone to answer. Admiral Wells turned to face her staff. There were 12 officers in the command center, representing every branch of the Earth Defense Force. They were the best humanity had to offer, and they were all looking at her, waiting for her to tell them what to do. "What do we know about she asked. Captain Cole stepped forward. He was the intelligence officer, responsible for knowing things about the galaxy that most humans would never learn. He was young for his position, only 35, but he had earned his place through hard work and natural talent. "They are a peaceful species," he said. "They have never fought a war. They have never built weapons. They joined the Galactic Council about 200 years ago and have been model citizens ever since. They are known for their art, their music, and their philosophy. They are completely harmless." And the devouring swarm hesitated. Admiral Wells noticed the hesitation. In 30 years, she had learned that hesitation usually meant bad news. "The devouring swarm is the most dangerous threat in the known galaxy," said finally. "They are a collective organism, a hive mind that spreads across space like a disease. They consume everything in their path: organic matter, minerals, technology, everything. They have destroyed an estimated 50 worlds in the past 300 years. No one has ever successfully defended against them. No one has ever survived contact with them." "Define survived," Admiral Wells said. "The Empire sent 12,000 warships against the swarm during the fall of. The swarm destroyed them all in less than a day. The Confederation tried to negotiate with them. The negotiators were consumed along with their ships. The hierarchy attempted to poison a world the swarm was approaching, hopping to make it worthless. The swarm consumed the poisoned world and adapted to the toxins within hours. Admiral Wells absorbed this information in silence. Around her, the other officers shifted uncomfortably. They understood what was saying. They understood what the signal meant. Someone was dying out there, and there was nothing anyone could do to help them. Except that was not entirely true, and everyone in the room knew it. "What is the Council's position?" Admiral Wells asked. "The Galactic Council has officially designated the situation as an internal matter," replied. "They have advised against intervention. They have specifically requested that Earth not become involved." Requested. Their exact words were, "We strongly advise the humans to recognize the hopelessness of the situation and to avoid any action that might draw the attention of the devouring swarm to other systems." Admiral Wells laughed. It was not a happy sound. It was the sound of someone who had finally seen the truth about the galaxy they lived in. "They think we are going to let 3 billion people die because it might be dangerous to help them." "That is precisely what they expect, Admiral. It is what any rational species would do." Admiral Wells was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the faces of her officers one by one. She saw fear in some of those faces. She saw doubt in others. But she also saw something else, something that made her proud to be human. She saw anger. "How far away is she asked. 72 light years, answered. "At maximum transit speed, we could reach them in 18 hours. "And how long until the swarm reaches their planet?" "Based on the trajectory data in the distress signal, approximately 32 hours from now." Admiral Wells nodded slowly. She had made her decision. In truth, she had made it the moment she heard the distress call. She had just needed a few minutes to accept the consequences. "Contact the President," she said. "Tell him I am recommending immediate deployment of the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet. Tell him we are going to answer that distress call." "Admiral," one of the other officers said, "the Council has advised against this. If we intervene, we could damage our relationship with the other major powers. We could draw the swarm's attention to Earth. We could start a war we cannot win." "I know," Admiral Wells said. "I know all of that, and I am still recommending deployment. Because if we do not answer that call, if we let 3 billion innocent people die because we are afraid, then we do not deserve to call ourselves human. We do not deserve to be a spacefaring civilization. We do not deserve anything." She turned back to face the main display, where the distress signal continued to play on repeat. "Contact the President," she said again, "and start preparing the fleet. We are going to war." The President of the United Earth Government was a man named Samuel. He was 63 years old, with white hair and a face that showed every one of those years. He had been a soldier once, long ago, before politics claimed him. He still remembered what it felt like to hold a weapon, to face an enemy, to fight for something larger than himself. He listened to Admiral Wells' recommendation in silence. He asked questions. He reviewed the intelligence reports. He consulted with his advisors. And then, less than 2 hours after the distress signal reached Earth, he made his decision. "Send the fleet," he said. "Send everything we can spare, and Admiral, bring those people home." The order went out across Earth's communication network. It reached military bases on 6 continents. It reached orbital stations and lunar installations and the scattered outposts of humanity's growing interstellar presence. And everywhere it reached, people began to move. The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet was stationed at the Neptune shipyards, a massive complex of construction facilities and repair docks that orbited the distant ice giant. The fleet consisted of 12 capital ships, 42 support vessels, and a full complement of Marines. It was one of the most powerful military forces humanity had ever assembled. Commander Lisa received the deployment order while she was eating breakfast in her quarters aboard the UES Defiant. She was 43 years old, with dark hair streaked with gray and a face that rarely showed emotion. She had commanded the Defiant for 5 years and the Third Fleet for 3. She was considered one of the finest officers in the Earth Defense Force. She read the order 3 times before she allowed herself to react. Then she set down her coffee cup and activated her communication system. All hands, this is the commander. We have received deployment orders. All shore leave is canceled effective immediately. All personnel will report to their duty stations within 1 hour. Department heads will report to the main conference room in 30 minutes for mission briefing. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. She closed the channel and sat in silence for a moment. Then she reached under her desk and pulled out a small wooden box that she kept hidden there. Inside the box was a photograph. The photograph showed a young woman in a military uniform, smiling at the camera. The woman looked a lot like Lisa. She should have. She was Lisa's mother. Lisa looked at the photograph for a long moment. Then she put it back in the box and closed the lid. "I hope you are watching, Mom," she said quietly. "I hope you can see what we are about to do." 30 minutes later, Lisa stood at the head of a conference table surrounded by her senior officers. There were 8 of them in total, representing every department on the ship. They were all looking at her with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "I will keep this brief," Lisa said. "We have received a distress call from they are under attack by the devouring swarm. The Galactic Council has refused to intervene. We have been ordered to render assistance." The reactions around the table were immediate. Some officers looked shocked. Others looked frightened. Lieutenant Commander Jake, her executive officer, simply nodded slowly as if he had expected this all along. "Commander," said Lieutenant Amy, the tactical officer, "the swarm destroyed 12,000 ships we have 60 vessels. How are we supposed to fight them?" "We are not going to fight them," Lisa said. "Not in a conventional sense. Our primary mission is evacuation and relief. We are going to get as many off that planet as possible. We are going to provide medical assistance and supplies. We are going to do everything we can to help them survive." "And if the swarm attacks us?" Lisa met Amy's eyes directly. "Then we will defend ourselves, and we will defend the people we came to save, whatever the cost." The room was silent for a moment. Then Jake spoke up. "Commander, you know as well as I do that we cannot evacuate 3 billion people. We do not have the transport capacity. Even if we did, the swarm would intercept any ships trying to leave the system. What are we really trying to accomplish here?" Lisa had been waiting for that question. She had been asking herself the same thing ever since she received the order. "We are trying to prove something," she said. "We are trying to prove that humanity is not like the other species in this galaxy. We do not abandon people who need help. We do not calculate acceptable losses. We do not look at 3 billion innocent beings and decide that they are not worth the risk." She paused and looked around the table. "I know the odds are against us. I know that many of us may not come back from this mission. But I also know that if we do not go, if we let those people die without even trying to help them, then we will have lost something more important than our lives. We will have lost our souls." The officers looked at each other. One by one, they nodded. Whatever doubts they had, whatever fears they carried, they were with her. "Good," Lisa said. "Now let us get to work. We jump in 3 hours." The Third Expeditionary Fleet left the Neptune shipyards at exactly 900 hours, Earth Standard Time. 12 capital ships and 42 support vessels accelerated away from the ice giant and aligned themselves for the jump to faster-than-light speed. On the bridge of the Defiant, Lisa watched the final preparations with a calm she did not feel. Around her, officers worked at their stations, checking systems and running diagnostics. Everything was functioning perfectly. Everything was ready. "Commander," Jake said, approaching her chair, "all ships report ready for transit. We are awaiting your order." Lisa nodded. She took a deep breath and activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships, this is Commander. In a few moments, we will be jumping to the system. When we arrive, we will face the most dangerous enemy the galaxy has ever known. I will not lie to you. Many of us will not survive this mission. Many of us will never see Earth again. She paused, letting the words sink in. But we are not going because we expect to win. We are going because someone asked for help and we are the only ones willing to answer. We are going because that is what humans do. We run toward danger, not away from it. We protect the weak, not abandon them. We fight for what is right, even when the cost is everything we have. She looked at the star chart on her display, at the small dot that represented the galaxy thinks we are monsters. They think we are the terrifying creatures from a death world, too dangerous to trust, too violent to understand. Today, we are going to show them what we really are. Today, we are going to show them what it means to be human. She closed the channel and turned to her helmsman. Take us in. The fleet jumped. 60 human ships vanished from the Neptune shipyards and reappeared 18 hours later at the edge of the system, and everything changed. The first thing Lisa saw when the transit completed was the swarm. She had seen images. She had read reports. She had studied tactical analyses of every engagement between the swarm and other civilizations. None of it had prepared her for the reality. The swarm filled space. There was no other way to describe it. Hundreds of thousands of organic vessels, ranging in size from tiny fighters to massive leviathans, moved through the void in perfect coordination. They pulsed with bioluminescent light, colors shifting in patterns that suggested communication, organization, purpose. They were beautiful in a terrible way, like a hurricane or a wildfire, natural forces that cared nothing for the destruction they caused. Tactical, Lisa said, her voice steady despite the cold fear growing in her chest. I need numbers. Amy worked her console with frantic efficiency. Her face was pale, but her hands were steady. Commander, I am reading over 400,000 individual contacts, possibly more. The interference from their biological signatures is making precise counts difficult. 400,000 against 60 human ships. Distance to the approximately 8 million kilometers. The swarm is currently positioned between us and the planet. They appear to be waiting. Waiting for what? Unknown, Commander. They are not advancing. They are not retreating. They are simply holding position. Lisa studied the tactical display, trying to understand what she was seeing. The swarm was a mindless consumer, according to everything she had read. It did not wait. It did not hesitate. It attacked and devoured and moved on to the next target. So why was it waiting now? Open a channel, she said. All frequencies. Channel open, Commander. Lisa stood up from her chair. She straightened her uniform. She took a deep breath. Attention, devouring swarm. This is Commander Lisa of the United Earth ship Defiant. You are threatening a protected species. You will halt your advance and withdraw from this system immediately. For a long moment there was only silence. The bridge crew held their breath, waiting for something to happen, waiting for the swarm to attack or respond or do anything at all. Then the communication system crackled to life. The voice that emerged was unlike anything Lisa had ever heard. It was not one voice but thousands, millions speaking in perfect unison. It was cold and vast and completely inhuman. We are the swarm. We have heard your transmission. We have analyzed your species. You are carbon-based life forms from a high-gravity world with a toxic atmosphere. You are mortal. You are limited. You are prey. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine, but she did not let her voice waver. We are humans, she said, and we are not prey. All species are prey. All organic matter will be consumed. It is our nature. It is our purpose. You cannot stop us. Nothing can stop us. You have not faced us before. We have observed your species. We have studied your history, your biology, your psychology. You are clever. You are adaptable. You are more aggressive than most species we have encountered. But you are still mortal. You still fear death. You still love your offspring and your companions. These weaknesses will be your undoing." Lisa smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "You think those are weaknesses?" "Of course, fear makes species surrender. Love makes them hesitate. Mortality makes them cautious. These are universal constants. All prey species share them." "Then let me tell you something about humans," Lisa said. "We do fear death, but we fear dishonor more. We do love our families, but that love makes us fight harder, not weaker. We are mortal, but that mortality makes every moment precious, every choice meaningful, every sacrifice worthwhile." She paused, letting her words carry across the void. "You think you understand us because you have studied us, but you have missed the most important thing, the thing that makes us different from every other species you have consumed." "And what is that?" "We do not give up, ever. No matter how bad things get, no matter how hopeless the situation seems, we keep fighting. We keep trying. We keep pushing forward until we win or we die, and sometimes we do both." The swarm was silent for a moment. When it spoke again, there was something different in its voice. Not fear exactly. The swarm did not seem capable of fear, but something like curiosity. "You are interesting, human. More interesting than most prey, but you are still prey, and you will still be consumed." "Then come and try," Lisa said. "We will be waiting." She cut the channel and turned to her tactical officer. "Amy, target the largest concentration of swarm vessels. Fire everything we have." "Commander, that will not destroy them. We do not have the firepower." "I know, but it will show them we are serious, and it will give the hope." Amy hesitated for just a moment. Then she nodded and began entering targeting commands. "All weapons locked on target, Commander. Ready to fire on your order." Lisa looked at the tactical display one last time. 400,000 enemy vessels against 60 human ships. The odds were impossible. The situation was hopeless. Any rational being would have turned around and fled. But Lisa was human, and humans did not run from impossible odds. They ran toward them. "Fire," she said. The Third Expeditionary Fleet opened fire. Missiles and energy weapons streaked across space toward the swarm. The void lit up with explosions as human ordnance struck alien flesh. And for the first time in its long existence, the devouring swarm felt something it had never felt before. It felt surprise. On the billions of beings watched the sky and waited to die. They were a gentle species. They had evolved on a paradise world, a planet of temperate forests and crystal-clear lakes and soft, warm sunshine. They had never known war. They had never known hunger. They had never known the desperate struggle for survival that shaped most intelligent species. When they first detected the swarm approaching their system, they had not believed it. Surely the universe could not be so cruel. Surely something would save them. Surely the Galactic Council, which they had served faithfully for 2 centuries, would not abandon them to such a fate. But the Council had abandoned them. The great powers of the galaxy had turned their backs, and now the swarm was here, and there was nothing anyone could do. Elder Counselor stood in the central plaza of the capital city and looked up at the stars. She was old, even by standards, with silver-white fur and eyes that had seen too much sorrow. She had served her people for 60 years. She had guided them through crises and conflicts and difficult times, but she had never faced anything like this. Around her, thousands had gathered. They were not rioting. They were not panicking. They were simply standing together, families and friends and neighbors, waiting for the end. Some of them were singing softly, ancient hymns that their ancestors had composed ago. Others were holding hands, drawing comfort from each other's presence. A few were crying quietly, tears running down their furred faces. "Elder Counselor," said a young aide named, approaching through the crowd, "there is news." turned to face him. She did not expect good news. There had been no good news for days. What is it? Ships have arrived at the edge of the system. They are not swarm vessels. Felt a spark of hope flicker in her chest. She crushed it immediately. Hope was dangerous. Hope would only make the end more painful. Who are they? Hesitated. His face showed an expression that could not read. It was not hope exactly. It was something else, something like awe. They are humans, Elder Counselor. The humans have come. Stared at him. For a moment she could not process what he had said. The humans. The terrifying creatures from the nightmare planet that the entire galaxy feared. How many ships? Approximately 60 vessels, Elder Counselor. 60 ships against the swarm. Yes, Elder Counselor. They have already opened fire. They are engaging the enemy as we speak. Did not know what to feel. The humans had come. The monsters of the galaxy, the creatures that civilized species whispered about in horror stories, had answered their distress call. They had come to help. But 60 ships against the swarm. They had sent 12,000 and been annihilated. What could 60 ships possibly accomplish? Why, she asked, more to herself than to. Why would they come? They have no alliance with us. They have no treaty obligations. They have nothing to gain and everything to lose. I do not know, Elder Counselor, but they are here. They are fighting for us. Looked up at the sky again. Somewhere up there, beyond the atmosphere, beyond the darkness of space, 60 human ships were challenging the most terrible force the galaxy had ever known. They were doing it for strangers. They were doing it for a species they had never met. Tell me about the humans, she said. Blinked in surprise. Elder Counselor. I have heard the stories, of course. Everyone has. But what do we actually know about them? Not the legends, not the horror stories, the truth. Thought for a moment before answering. They come from a world called Earth, he said. It is a class Omega, the most dangerous planetary classification. Their atmosphere contains high levels of oxygen, which is a corrosive and toxic gas. Their gravity is approximately 3 times higher than ours. Their planet experiences extreme temperature fluctuations, violent weather patterns, and constant seismic activity. How did they survive such a place? They are incredibly resilient, Elder Counselor. Their bodies can heal from wounds that would kill most species. They can survive in a wide range of environments. They can eat almost anything. They require regular intake of oxygen, that poison gas, just to stay alive. Shuddered. She had known the stories, of course. Everyone in the galaxy knew the stories about Earth, about the creatures who had emerged from that hellish world. But hearing it described so clinically made it somehow more real, more frightening. And their psychology. That is where it gets interesting, Elder Counselor. Humans are social creatures. They form strong bonds with each other, with other species, even with machines and animals. They are capable of great violence, but also great compassion. They have fought terrible wars among themselves, but they have also built remarkable civilizations. They are contradictory, unpredictable, and completely unlike any other species in the known galaxy. What about their military capabilities? Shook his head. Limited by galactic standards. They have only been a spacefaring civilization for a few centuries. Their technology is generations behind the major powers. Their fleet is small compared to the. Then why is the galaxy so afraid of them? Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was very soft. Because they do not stop, Elder Counselor. Other species calculate risk and reward. Other species know when to surrender, when to retreat, when to accept defeat. Humans do not. They fight on long after the battle should be over. They sacrifice themselves for causes that logic says are already lost. They refuse to accept that anything is impossible. He paused and looked up at the sky. They sent 12,000 ships and lost, but they were fighting to win. The humans are not fighting to win, Elder Counselor. They are fighting because it is the right thing to do, and that makes them far more dangerous than any fleet of warships. Thought about this for a long moment. Then she turned to address the crowd that had gathered in the plaza. "My people," she said, her voice carrying across the silence, "we have received word that help has arrived. The humans have come. They are fighting the swarm as I speak." A murmur ran through the crowd. Could see the same mixture of hope and fear on every face, the same uncertainty she felt in her own heart. "I will not lie to you," she continued. "I do not know if the humans can save us. I do not know if anyone can save us. But I do know this: someone answered our call. Someone heard us crying in the darkness and chose to help. Whatever happens next, we are not alone." She looked up at the stars one more time. And perhaps that is enough. On the bridge of the Defiant, Lisa watched the tactical display with growing intensity. The first volley had done exactly what she expected. It had gotten the swarm's attention. "Multiple contacts breaking formation," Amy reported. "They are moving to intercept us. Estimate 10,000 hostile vessels inbound." "Time to contact." 12 minutes, Commander." Lisa nodded. 10,000 ships against 60. Better odds than she had expected, actually. The swarm seemed to be treating them as a minor nuisance rather than a serious threat. "That was a mistake." "Signal the fleet," she said. "Form defensive perimeter. Priority is protecting the transport ships. We need them intact for evacuation." "Aye, Commander, transmitting now." The human fleet shifted into a new formation, the capital ships forming a protective ring around the lighter transport vessels. Point defense systems came online. Targeting computers locked onto the approaching swarm fighters. "Commander," Jake said, "we have incoming transmission from the swarm." "Put it through." The alien chorus filled the bridge once again. "You continue to resist. This is illogical. You cannot win. Your destruction is inevitable." "Maybe," Lisa said, "but we are going to make you work for it." "Why? What do you gain from this? They are not your species. You have no obligation to defend them. You have nothing to gain from their survival." "You keep asking me that. You keep trying to understand why we are here. Let me try to explain it in terms you might understand." Lisa stood up and walked closer to the main, as if she could somehow reach through it to the alien intelligence on the other side. "Millions of years ago, my ancestors lived in caves. They were weak. They were prey. Everything on our world wanted to kill them and usually succeeded. They should have gone extinct 1,000 times over. But they did not. No, they did not, because they learned something. They learned that one human is weak, but many humans together are strong. They learned that the only way to survive was to help each other, to protect each other, to fight for each other, even when it was dangerous, even when it was stupid, even when it made no logical sense." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "That instinct is still inside us. It is written into our genes, into our culture, into everything we are. When we see someone in trouble, we help them. When we hear someone calling for aid, we answer. It is not a choice. It is not a calculation. It is who we are." "This is a weakness," the swarm said. "This will lead to your destruction." "Maybe, but it has also led us to the stars. It has built our civilization, our technology, our entire way of life. And right now, it has led us here to this system, to defend people we have never met against a threat we cannot defeat." She smiled. "You think we are prey. You think we are weak, but you are wrong. We are the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever produced. Not because we are the strongest or the most advanced, but because we care, because we will fight and die for strangers, because we never ever give up." The swarm was silent for a long moment, then it spoke again. "We will see." The first wave of swarm fighters reached the human fleet exactly 12 minutes later, just as Amy had predicted. They came in a swirling mass of organic vessels, each one a living weapon of tooth and claw and acid. They expected to overwhelm the defenders through sheer numbers, just as they had overwhelmed every other species they had encountered. They were wrong. The human point defense systems opened fire the moment the swarm entered range. Kinetic projectiles moving at a significant fraction of the speed of light shredded the first wave of fighters before they could fire a single shot. Energy weapons burned through organic hulls like sunlight through mist. The space around the human fleet became a killing ground, filled with the debris of destroyed swarm vessels. Confirmed kills mounting, Commander, Amy reported. 300, 400, 500. Keep firing, do not let up. The swarm adapted quickly. They always did. The second wave came in more dispersed patterns, using the debris from the first wave as cover. Larger vessels moved forward, their thick organic hulls absorbing multiple hits before failing. The UES Valiant took the first serious hit. A swarm boarding craft managed to slip through the defensive fire and attach itself to the cruiser's hull. Within seconds, it had burned through the armor and begun disgorging its cargo of warrior organisms. Valiant reports boarders, Jake said. Multiple decks compromised. Lisa's jaw tightened. Tell them to seal the affected sections and hold the line. We cannot afford to lose her. On board the Valiant, Sergeant Dan Murphy was having the worst day of his life. And for a man who had fought in 6 different conflicts on 3 different worlds, that was saying something. He was 41 years old, with a face that looked like it had been carved from stone and a body that was covered in scars. He had joined the Marines at 18 and never looked back. He had killed in vacuum, in toxic atmospheres, in gravity wells that made every step agony. He had thought he knew what combat was. He was learning otherwise. The swarm creatures were unlike anything he had ever faced. They were organic, yes, but there was nothing natural about them. They moved with terrifying speed and coordination. Their bodies were covered in hardened chitin that could deflect small arms fire. Their claws could punch through marine armor like it was paper. And there were so many of them. Fall back to Section 7, Murphy bellowed over the chaos. Form up on me. His squad, what was left of it, retreated down the corridor in good order. They had started with 12 Marines. They were down to 8. 4 good men and women, dead in the first few minutes of boarding action. But they had made the swarm pay for every inch. Sarge, Private Bait Turner said, they're coming through the vents. Murphy looked up. She was right. The swarm had figured out the ship's ventilation system and was using it to outflank them. He could hear them moving through the ductwork, a horrible scratching sound that set his teeth on edge. Grenades in the vents, he ordered. Turner, cover our 6, everyone else with me. They fought their way back to Section 7, leaving a trail of swarm bodies behind them. Murphy lost 2 more Marines in the process, including Corporal Jackson, who took a claw through the chest and still managed to kill 3 more creatures before he died. When they finally reached Section 7, Murphy sealed the blast doors and took stock of his situation. 6 Marines left, ammunition running low, multiple wounded, and somewhere on the other side of those doors, hundreds more swarm creatures were waiting to break through. Sarge Turner said, "What do we do?" Murphy looked at her. She was young, maybe 23, with a face that was too pretty for a combat zone. She had joined the Marines to pay for college. She had never expected to end up here. "We hold," he said. "We hold this position until the ship is secure or until we are dead. Those are the only options." "What about retreat? There are escape pods on Deck 4. There are 3 billion people on that planet down there who are counting on us. If we run, they die. If we hold, maybe some of them survive. So we hold." Turner looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded and checked her weapon. "All right, Sarge, let us hold." They held. For 6 hours, they held that corridor against everything the swarm could throw at them. They fought with rifles and grenades and bayonets. When they ran out of ammunition, they fought with knives and fists. When they were too wounded to stand, they fought from the floor. Murphy lost 3 more Marines during those 6 hours. He took a claw through his shoulder and kept fighting with his offhand. Turner lost her left leg below the knee and refused evacuation, propping herself against the wall and continuing to fire. Was swarmed by half a dozen creatures and killed them all before he died, his body found surrounded by enemy dead. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found Murphy standing alone in a corridor choked with swarm bodies. His armor was shattered. His wounds were so numerous that the medics could not count them all. His weapon was empty and his blade was broken. But he was still standing, still fighting. "Sergeant," the relief squad leader said, "you need to get to medical." Murphy spat blood on the deck and looked at the bodies around him. "After we win," he said, "these things are not so tough." Across the fleet, similar scenes played out. Swarm boarding parties that should have overwhelmed human crews were met with resistance beyond anything they had ever encountered. Humans fought in conditions that should have killed them. They ignored wounds that would have incapacitated other species. They protected their comrades with suicidal determination and died with weapons in their hands and curses on their lips. And slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn.